As we all know, Brock Purdy was selected with the last pick in the NFL draft. Despite that, he has ended up having a pretty good career so far. He's, been to a Super Bowl, was in a conference championship game before getting injured, was an MVP candidate last season. A lot of good stuff with Brock Purdy. We can debate just how good he is, but I think we all agree he is good and certainly a great pick for the last overall selection. So let's talk about why did he fall so far in the draft? And are there some things that in hindsight looking back we can say, oh yeah, that we actually should have paid more attention to that? Or is it the other way and watching the tape, you still say, man, how did this guy end up being successful? Who knew? Let's just get into it. Real quick, just stepping in to remind everyone that I have a movie channel. Check out my movie channel if you want. It's Jackson Kruger Movies. The link is in the description below, so if you're tired of just hearing my bad sports takes and want to also hear some bad movie takes, make sure you check that out. Again, link is in the description below. Let's start off with a play like this. So it's going to be zone coverage, and the routes you see on the screen are routes that, certainly can work against this type of coverage. If you kind of get, in a soft spot in between players over the middle of the field, but underneath the safeties, Purdy can make the throw, you can get a completion here. However, when it begins, Purdy is going to look down the field, steps up a little bit, and doesn't love what he sees down the field. On this play, we're going to see something that I really think is one of the biggest and most important aspects of Brock Purdy's game, and that's his improvisation, which we've really seen in San Francisco is a real key benefit for them, and a real big part of why really the Shanahan scheme has never had more success outside of that one, Falcons season, I would say. It is because, when plays don't work, he can do things like this. Watch him scramble up, but eventually flip it, and you still get a few yards there. It's nothing crazy at all, but again, you're seeing the flashes of what he will eventually become, which is, hey, now in the NFL, he flips it to McCaffrey, and McCaffrey picks up 10 yards, right? Like, the ability to find a way to get the ball to the right player at the right moment. Going back and watching the film, I can totally see why people weren't overly impressed with him. Like a play like this, it's a zone coverage play. You have a receiver running a deep route down the field. Okay, everyone loves a quarterback with a big arm. Everyone loves a quarterback who can hit a deep shot. Let's see what Purdy can do. When this play begins, you're going to see that Brock Purdy, runs this play action, really fires one down the field, and you see there is a bit of a window right here, not a massive one. It's kind of a jump ball scenario, which is, I guess, a good thing because this is very much going to be a jump ball. You see how much air Purdy put under it. I remember I didn't do a real deep dive evaluation of him coming out of college, but I do like to just kind of do a quick look at the quarterbacks that are kind of expected to go maybe in the draft, maybe not in the draft. I'll just do a quick evaluation of them. I just remember one of the only things on my notes for Purdy was I wrote not an NFL arm, and that's kind of what I wrote him off for. Again, didn't do a deep evaluation on him. The arm strength doesn't look great, but again, for San Francisco, do they really care? Like, he can get the ball down there. It's not ideal, but he can still do it. And that's really all they need for the way that system is built. So it's kind of a match made in heaven there. I think you saw some examples of really good timing from Purdy that just didn't work out due to no fault of his own. There were some drops, there were some poor receiver play at Iowa State, something like this. You see the route on the screen and how this, how this would ideally work, sort of towards the sideline. That's where you want to make this throw. Purdy takes the snap and, is going to fire it down the field, and you see it's really well timed. Timing is very good. Accuracy is obviously the next important part. Can you put it in a good spot? Purdy does there, but the receiver isn't quite able to hold on. You know who is able to hold on? Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, right? So I think in some ways that he was, maybe overlooked just due to that, kind of due to no fault of his own on some of these plays. But we also saw stuff like this, which was just him kind of, again, having a really good understanding of how football works, really, where this is a bowl game, you have a receiver running a route over the middle, and when he takes the snap, you're going to see that when he fires it kind of off balance too due to pressure, there's a window, but it's not a great window. You have to time this one perfectly if you're going to get this completion. However, that's exactly what he does, really well timed, and they get a completion right there. So again, this type of stuff is really what has paid dividends in San Francisco. This is what San Francisco loves to have players do, and he can do it. And also something like this, where this is a deep route, which, hey, I said earlier, that's not his strength, and I would still say it isn't his strength, although he still can time them well, which means it's not a massive weakness either. But either way, you see it's going to be a deep shot down the field. But when this play begins for Purdy, he looks there, and I think a lot of guys would just bomb it down the field, throw it towards the end zone, and try to get a completion that way. But one of the things I like about Purdy a lot at the NFL level, and I was impressed with when I started watching some of his college tape, was his ability to do this. Watch him go with more of a back shoulder throw right here. They're able to get a completion all the way to the 20. I mean, that's just really good stuff by Brock Purdy. I'll be honest, again, everyone loves to say, wow, the NFL really screwed up this situation. What a bad job by the NFL of, going out and just whiffing on a guy like Brock Purdy, who ended up being awesome. And sure, to some degree, yes, they probably should have drafted him earlier, certainly in hindsight. But at the same time, you watch his film, there's all the flashes there for sure, and looking back on it, you can totally see, as a prequel to the eventual NFL run he's had, you can certainly see why he's worked. I certainly don't think this is a scenario where he's he was not a good player who's only propped up due to the Shanahan scheme. I don't think that's the case at all. I do think it's also fair to say that there was a lot of a risk in Purdy as a prospect, which is why he wasn't a hyped up one, because we didn't know how the arm strength thing was going to work. It's worked out great. The kind of improvisational ability looked good in college, and most people, including again going back to my notes, that was one of the things I really talked about as a positive. But I was kind of well, who really, cares that much? How much are you going to be able to actually use this? And at the NFL level, the answer has been a lot. He's been really good at that. So that was a misfire, I think, by most people, was, hey, if he's good at something, view it as a positive. Sure, maybe he doesn't look like the super athlete, and so you don't really pay attention to his athleticism, but his athleticism is a real thing. And so viewing it as a positive totally makes sense and is something that's really worked at the NFL level. And his ability to time these plays accurately was very good. I think you can easily kind of talk yourself out of a player like Purdy. And I should mention, a lot of players like Purdy don't work. I don't think there's a massive difference between Purdy and Spencer Rattler, who just went in round 4. Maybe Spencer Rattler will work. I don't know. But as prospects, there's not a huge difference. But for Purdy, we just know that what was good in college has ended up being really good at the NFL level, and what wasn't great in college just hasn't ended up being an issue. He's, of course, just improved a lot as well, but those are kind of my main thoughts on Purdy, and I think what he brings to the table for the 49ers, and why he fell so far in the draft. But that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.